Hello and welcome to... what's this podcast called again? The Impossible J. Yeah, that's enough for jokes then.
Podcast. What episode is this?
It's a special episode.
Is it?
It's not even an episode.
Special, man.
This is it.
Doesn't have a number.
The future of the Kings.
Oh.
This
wow.
is a very important episode. We have two guests. The first one ever.
Two.
I'm going to introduce him, Josh.
Huey and Ben. Nice to have you on.
Hi guys, thanks for having us.
Yeah, cheers. Nice to be here in the
Thanks,
studio.
In your own studio.
So if you just want to introduce yourselves, talk about like what you're doing, what you're running for, that'd be great. So if you want to start here.
Yeah, so my name's Huey. I'm a third year business management student and I'm running to be the next president of union development at the Students' Union here in Hull.
Perfect.
Hi, my name's Ben. I'm currently studying a Masters in Music and I'm running to be the next president of, well, the first president of Opportunities, I should say.
Right.
The first one.
The first one.
Now this is very interesting because we've already interviewed someone running for the president of Opportunities.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be very interesting to see your point of view about this and see what's in your manifesto. So
okay.
shall I start?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we want to know is obviously because you're running for two different positions, we want to know your main points, your main 3 points in your manifestos and what you're going to be achieving. So what that involves, like for the uni, for the unions, things like that. So if you want to start viewing.
Yeah, so my number one point that I really want to get done this year is to really hold the university to account on the on-campus accommodation issues that a lot of students have seen this year. We've been looking at running some campaigns around educating students on their rights when it comes to accommodation. Because a lot of the time, students can be taken advantage of, not just in Hull, but across the country, because landlords do some quite shady things sometimes, especially when it comes to students, because they know they're not experienced enough to know their rights. So we're going to be looking at that, and we're also going to be looking at making sure that the university isn't taking advantage of students when it comes to them signing contracts.
Yeah.
At the moment, it doesn't take very many clicks on the university website for you to have signed up legally to live at Westford Court or Courtyard. So that's something we really want to take a look at as well. And it's all about us using our relationship with the university to make sure that they're listening to us and they're listening to students' views and they're holding their partner to account, because obviously they partner with UPP, which is a private accommodation company. And also making sure that if they're not listening to us and they're not working with us in good faith, that we're not afraid to call them out publicly, which is something that we haven't done this year yet, because we're trying to obviously work through things, but it's something that I won't be afraid to do if I have to.
Okay.
Yeah. So also sustainability is a big thing for this role. The university have goals to be carbon neutral on campus by 2027, and I think it's a really good opportunity for the union and the university to work together on these sorts of things. We want to be pushing them to make sure they actually hit their goal and actually holding them to account in that space. They've already brought forward that goal by 3 years from 2030, so it's looking promising, but what we want to make sure is that those sustainability efforts don't come at the cost of any student experience. And we've already seen some issues where, believe it or not, they've been closing floors of the library, not because no one uses them necessarily, but because it's a big energy consumer to keep them open. So we want to make sure that if they are doing things like that it's not cutting down the student experience. Obviously not all students have computers, so some students really heavily rely on that library resource. And over the pandemic, there were periods where the whole library was closed, and now that we've come back to full on-campus stuff, we're seeing that they're closing more and more floors earlier and earlier. So we really want to be making sure that their sustainability efforts don't impact on students in a negative way. And just on our side, I want to try and get some rooftop gardens around campus. If you've ever looked out from the 7th floor of the library, it's a nice view, but it's just like a range of dull air conditioning units.
Yeah.
And there's actually quite a lot of like sustainability like stuff that can be done in terms of like moss roofs, and they don't only look nice, they also really help with insulation.
Yeah.
And they cut down on carbon emissions greatly. I want to maybe look into getting some beehives as well, because what that will do is we'll be able to get honey to maybe sell in the shop. Also, they pollinate the campus really well. One of the first things that made me fall in love with Hull was how nice the campus looks in the summer when all the applicant days are. There's flowers everywhere, and over the last few years it's been getting a bit duller.
Yeah.
And I think we need to bring that back. And I've got loads of manifesto points, but I think finally one of my main ones would be the safety and support piece. We've seen quite a disturbing rise in sexual violence in the UK. especially on university campuses, and a big part of that is obviously that we've come out of a pandemic. We've got a lot of young people that don't really know how to behave, but that's not an excuse, and we need to make sure that we've got a really firm stance in our community against sexual violence and really violence of any kind. So a big part of that is continuing the Never Okay campaign against tackling violence against women, making sure we're advertising the things we do in a bar and the club, like the Ask Angela scheme, making sure we're continuing to do drink spiking testing kits, and things like that, and also just looking at our disciplinary procedures, because at the moment disciplinary procedures can go on for a really, really long time. We have a separate one to the university, so students are going through both disciplinary procedures at once, which isn't helpful. And as I said, it takes ages to get anything done, and I just think that that's not fit for purpose if we're going an entire year without things being sorted out. So I'd say those are my 3 main points that I want to
That's
focus
actually
on.
perfect.
That's great. Yeah, I think we relate to that a lot on the podcast as well. Don't we? That's a lot of things that we've spoken about before. So yeah, thank you.
I think. Yeah. Go on.
Oh, I was just going to ask
We'll go back. We'll go
Ben,
back
what's your 3 main points?
Oh, I feel like I've got to read an essay. No, that was fantastic. I appreciate that. So, I have 4 main points really that I've been wanting to.
Not 3.
No. 4 main points I've been wanting to.
I had 8, but I didn't want to say.
Actually, I've got. No. I shan't compete. No. So, 4 main points really. So I'll go through them and run through them. So collaboration first. I've been part of. So, just so people know, we're currently in Jam Radio Studios, and I've been part of Jam Radio now since I joined uni way back in 2018, and I've seen this society particularly grow magnificently into a society that is now well recognised within the union, well sort of in the student eye, in the student community. People know we're here now. I mean, before we were upstairs and people had no idea where we were, and now we're down here and stuff like that. And with this opportunity has come opportunities to work with different societies to help promote them, to help sort of create a wider audience for them. Specifically, we've started doing a commentary for the game of the week, and this was sort of the thing that got me thinking about, if Jam can do this sort of thing and if we can support other societies, why can't all societies work together to help support each other? Why can't we all, because I'm sure there's things other societies can do to benefit particular societies. I mean, I can only speak on the student media side because that's what I'm heavily involved in. But I'm sure there's plenty of other societies that would be willing to work with people. I mean, say for the Disney Society, they could do a review piece in the Hull Fine newspaper. You know, there's that capability as well for sports teams as well. I would love it for society, because I've always felt there's a sense of disconnect between societies and sports. They've always felt like very separate things, and I think it's important to remember that we all come under the one banner of the union. We all work under the union, and that's the plan. And I think it's important that we come together and are able to communicate with each other about creating better opportunities, because at the end of the day, the role name is President of Opportunities. I'm here to make opportunities for students and make really sort of lasting memories for them that they can take on to further life. It's all about that. It's all about further life stuff as well. I want to give students experiences that they can take on. You know, these are things that a lot of students don't get to do in their day-to-day lives. These are things that students don't get to experience. And I think it's really important that we make sure that these experiences that we're giving them are the sort of the best opportunities for them, whether that be just sort of getting involved in a sports team, or whether that be, you know, we work with them with certain societies to help with employability and in that kind of thing, and give them those sort of opportunities. Revitalisation is my next point. I really want to sort of... So, of course, we've had pandemic, we've had the lockdown, and we've a lot of societies have had to make sacrifices. A lot of societies have lost a lot of members, and a lot of people have stepped away from that. And I think it's important that we sort of revitalise these things. We sort of look at what worked before, what hasn't worked before, what can we do to help facilitate sports teams, societies, give it a go events, anything that just sort of runs under the union. What can we do to help make that great again? What can we do to revitalise those opportunities for people, and what can we do to just sort of make sure that these opportunities are the best for the students? My next one is support. Support is a huge thing. So, societies depend heavily on. I know, particularly having worked on the exec for Jam, how heavily we depend on the likes of Ellis and how much they've sort of helped support us and helped get our name out there and helped get us gigs in Jam and stuff like that. But I think a lot of societies don't appreciate sort of how much, you know, that role can do for them, how much that role can sort of help support them and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of societies aren't aware there's extra funding out for them that can help support them and stuff like that. So I just want to create a space where there is no sort of divide between that's your president and that's the society. I want them to be able to see me as a sort of, oh, you're a friend, I can come to you, I can ask you questions, I know what I need to do with you, and you can help support me. Because at the end of the day, like my first point said, as much as I can support them, they can support back the union back, they can give back to the union, because it's all about giving back, and it's all about the opportunities that they can provide for everybody else. And my final point is connection, which is sort of the same thing as collaboration, really. It's just sort of being able to connect with the students and not being able to create a disconnect from that, and being able to just be a face that they recognise and they can work with.
That's actually
Some very, very good points.
So I want to deep dive into some of them, but before that, one of the hopeful reasons I got you both on the podcast together is because obviously you've been working together.
Yep.
And obviously your roles are, you know, opportunities and so on, but not always limited. So obviously when there's a problem going on the campus, how would you work together to get that done? Or are you so tunnel vision on just the topics you're going for?
I think one of the one of the great things about the students' president team is that, well, first of all, we'll all be in the same office. Every day we'll be working with each other.
We can't avoid each other. There is no avoiding each other.
We're really lucky. I mean, I've known the last 3 president teams, and they've always been able to work with each other really well. I think it's one of those things where people who want to do this job are people who want to work with people to get things done. Yeah. Because otherwise, if you didn't want to get things done, why would you want to run for the role? Yeah.
On that point, I just think it's really there's no point going for this role if you aren't friendly, and you aren't approachable. I think you need to be able to be friendly and be approachable, but you also need to be able to take criticism and take sort of things on board, and that's why the sort of past couple of president teams have worked so well together, because they know each other really well. They know when to say, I don't think you're doing that right. And they know, you know, how to support each other, and I think that's the important thing to remember when you're working as part of that team.
I think for my role especially, it's the union development role. It's a lot to do with sometimes a lot more of the boring side of things, but I might be working to develop those strategies and working on the governance side of things, but I actually will have to rely on the other presidents to help me implement things in their zones. If I want to make changes that are going to happen from the top up or the bottom down in sports teams and clubs, I'll have to be working with whoever wins opportunities, and if I want to make changes in the academic space, I'll have to be working with whoever wins education. And the same for the inclusivity, diversity piece. I really want to be focusing on making sure our campus is safe and making sure the support is there. and that's something I'll be having to work really closely with the inclusivity and diversity president on.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm really looking forward to being able to do.
Yeah, it's same with me as well. I've noticed there's a real gap of international students getting involved with sports events and things like that. So I will have to work with inclusivity and diversity to make that happen. And it's those sort of things that people don't see how much they collaborate together to create these visions for students.
Have you got a plan for that to happen for the diversity with obviously because obviously next year I believe we have like 4,000
international students.
It's actually 7,000
7,000
upwards international postgraduate offers that have been made. One of my key things I didn't talk about at the beginning is the international experience. I want to be creating partnerships with students' unions and universities abroad, so that we can develop a program that helps them to integrate better into life in the UK.
Yeah,
we've seen a lot of issues this year, academic misconduct issues, also issues with them not feeling like they can be involved in clubs and societies, and also some issues around just basic communication problems. It is a requirement to do a course here that you speak English, but the test you have to take is not very robust, and often international students can struggle with complicated documents in English. So I want to introduce a policy where the union is translating documents into some of the key languages, the first languages of some of the students coming here, and I really want to push the university to do that as well, because other unions and universities across the country are doing that, and it's one of those things that will really help to close that gap for participation and inclusion.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have noticed, but it's a kind of like a pet. I ain't religious at all, but on the campus they've got a multi-prayer room.
They do.
Have you got any plans to obviously make a room for each religion? Because I don't think it's fair for, if you're Muslim, to go into a place where Sikhs pray.
No.
Obviously, I'm not against religion. I just wouldn't, if I was like religious myself. We've got churches.
It's the inclusivity factor.
Have you got any spaces or any plans where each religion has its own place to go, rather than going to a multi-faith place?
Well, I mean, that wouldn't necessarily fall under my guise, but I would definitely work. I am religious myself. I'm a Christian, so I know how important prayer is, and especially for other religions as well. I know how important that is, and now you've mentioned it, I can see the need for that. I'm sure that's something that could be facilitated, especially in the Muslim faith as well, because there's multiple times throughout the day where they have to pray, and they will need those sort of spaces. So I think that's a really good point you've raised there, and I think that is something we should look into and should be facilitated with.
I can't lie, it's not something that's ever come to my attention before, but I think an interesting thing to do there would be to really be reaching out to local churches, local mosques, synagogues, and seeing if there's any support that they can offer us in that place. If they're local on campus, maybe there could be maybe they could help facilitate those. Obviously, there's a lot of space on campus, so that's definitely something. Something that we should be able to do.
Are you aware there's a university chaplain as well on campus?
I think there's two. I think
there is. Yeah, there's a Catholic one, and there's a Church of England.
Exactly. So there's spaces for them. But no one else.
So it's a really good point you've raised there.
Especially since, as you said, we're having a lot more diverse cultures coming to campus over this year and next year as well.
And it's only fair for them. If they're coming to us, we need to obviously adapt
I
to them.
think it would be important, like we said, we've got those chaplaincies. Why don't we have representatives of other faiths?
Sorry.
That's all right, don't worry. I thought you were going to sneeze, that's all. Why don't we have representatives of other faiths in there?
Linking back to the international students, obviously you raised a very good point of the English level. It's quite poor from what the university give. I have an international student in my flat. We can barely hold a conversation, and it actually turns into an issue where they're not really socialising with the flat. And I find with the international students, especially Chinese students, just from my own what I've seen, that they tend to stick together. And from when we were speaking to Mohammed, his plans for creating a Pakistani and an Asian society. Do you not think that something like creating a new society to just involve those groups will only further create a divide?
Yeah.
Whereas if we wanted to make more interaction and more sociable with students that are already here and international students, what are your sort of plans for that? I'm just curious to see, so, like, what are the things that you would want to put in place to sort of lessen that divide?
I think it's very important that we are doing work to make sure that international students and people from different cultures are feeling comfortable on campus. I will say that I do also think it's important that they have those spaces where they can be with be with people who have the similar life experiences.
I say
like that.
Culture is a really important thing, and especially for them because they are thousands of miles away from home, and I think it's important that they have people that can relate to them, can empathise with them, and sort of. So, I don't think creating the society like that is necessarily a bad thing. It's how you go about doing it, and how you go about sort of creating connections with people. I think a society like that should be more about supporting them in a sort of British setting, rather than trying to. Of course, like celebrating their traditions is great. And I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Yeah, that society should be for that, and that's great. But it should also support them in the British sense and being able. And this is what I'm saying about connections with people. I'd love to be able to connect. Sort of say if this society wanted to connect with one of the sports teams and take part in a sporting event, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm all up for that. That's the sort of thing I want to do.
Do some like commentary and stuff. Like
Yeah. Do that. Yeah, that would be brilliant.
Yeah. It's just the issue we had with Mohammed, with his plans for the Pakistani and the Asian societies, was that he was very heavily focusing on having them have their own group, but in his plan for the app that would take 8 months to develop, I know, he said the main priority was the Asian and the Pakistani societies, and then second being the sports societies. He didn't really speak much on any other societies, so when we brought it up, it was mainly just going back to those three.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's great that we should have that group for international
like I say,
students.
I'm all for creating something like that. That's a fantastic idea. But it should be more about support for them and creating connections with them, with other societies.
Exactly.
And like you were saying, Huey, if we can help sort of with the language barrier as well, we can get them involved in more opportunities and more experiences with them.
Sorry. I think the language barrier that international students have sometimes with lecturers, and then home students sometimes have with international students, is actually a lot bigger than I think the university realises.
Yeah, definitely.
I've spoken to quite a lot of international students who struggle with some lecturers' accents that they completely can't understand them, and I've spoken to home students who struggle with accents from international lecturers or international people that they're meeting. And it's this sort of language barrier and breakdown of communications is something that's always going to happen when you bring so many different people from so many different places. I mean, if I meet a Northern Irish person, sometimes I struggle to understand.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they struggle to understand what I'm saying as well.
I mean, there's language barriers with accents in the UK. Trust me, I've struggled.
I think it's all about that that piece of just trying to connect people, making it, because there's so many international students who don't feel like they're even allowed to get involved in things like sports teams. Yeah. They feel like they're separate from the rest of the university. I get international students asking me, "Oh, are we allowed to vote?" And I'm like,
really?
"Yeah, absolutely,
of course,
you're allowed to vote."
I've spoken to a couple of people this week where they A, didn't know they could vote, and B, didn't know how to vote because there was a bit of an issue there. The communication wasn't there with it.
And I think that ultimately goes down to the things that the university is sending out to students when they give them their offers and when the students accept offers. We're quite limited at the Students' Union with what we can send students in terms of the data that we get shared by the university due to GDPR issues and stuff. So sometimes the things that the university is sending out are not necessarily helpful in terms of induction. They don't necessarily go deep enough into the things that students can be getting involved in when they come over here.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's a lot of work to be done
I
in
say
that area.
on the point of just sort of things they can do during induction, I felt I know, especially when I first joined, there was a real disconnect, and I didn't know what sort of opportunities the union provides, and you know those freshers fairs are fantastic. They're brilliant things, but the union don't advertise them. Not the union. The uni don't advertise them. Sorry. Yeah. The uni don't really push them out there as much as they could do. You know, because at the end of the day, we're here to support students. The union's here to support the students, and the university are there to support the students. And taking care of well-being is an important thing. And I think these sort of things are really important for well-being. These are students that have been, you know, moved away from home. A lot of them, and especially for international students, that's a real distance. So they're going to want things that they can connect to, people that they have similar interests in, and stuff like that. So I think it's really important, in sense of well-being, to have these connections.
Yeah, definitely. With obviously, we're going on to the app, what was in development. Have you got any similarities to make it easier to create a society or a sports club? Because me personally, trying to make a sports club, I found it quite difficult.
No, I say I've spoken to quite a few people about this. I've got a friend who recently tried to, well, he's managed it now, but trying to recreate the Christian Union in the whole in the union, and the palaver he had to go through, the amount of forms he had to fill in to try and get it out. I mean, it is really, really difficult. And I think the thing is, if you really struggle with sort of like reading, because there's a lot of documents to go through, and if you're really struggling to go through it, and there doesn't seem that much support in sort of helping to create that, and that's the thing I want to do. Like, I understand the reasons why there's these forms. I understand the reason why we have this, but what I think there needs to be is more support and more sort of, okay, this is what this is for, this is what this is for, this is how this works, and stuff like that. And I think that's the thing that needs to change, is the more support in terms of, if they want to create a society, this is how you do it.
Yeah. Just on that, a few years ago I was a part-time officer, and my role was to be a societies mentor, and that was basically my job, in helping students who want to set up new societies, helping establish societies, run events, and helping them with all the forms and all the paperwork they have to be doing. And one of the things we did was sort of look at changing the rules around how much you have to do to get your society ratified. It used to be the case that you needed 10 paid members for your society to stay alive, and I think we've now dropped that down to three,
isn't it?
Three now. Yeah. So there has been work done on making the process easier, but obviously there's still work that needs to be doing. And if we were to link that back to a potential Students' Union app, I would really love to see a place, like a dashboard on the app for committees and execs, where they have all of their things in one place.
Okay. Yeah.
Because at the moment you have to email this form to that person and that form to this person.
It needs to be more direct.
You have to wait for it to be ratified, and then this, that, and the other, and it puts people off doing things. Especially if you're busy, if you're doing your degree, often students are working alongside that as well, and then you're doing your social interactions alongside that as well, and sometimes you just don't have time to, even 20 minutes to fill in a form is sometimes too long.
It's a lot.
I started my form in September, and I've only just got it approved in February.
Really?
Yeah.
And I started it in September.
A big part of that as well is staffing, and we're currently looking at hiring lots more people in the near future, and I think that will be a really positive step towards increasing that support.
And that would help with the support side of things.
So mainly it's just trying to focus on creating a simpler process. Is that what do you think the issue is? It's just too complicated?
I've always said that bureaucracy is the death of fun, and fun is one of our Students' Union's
things,
top 5 priorities, and I think if we, obviously the paperwork's there for a reason. You know, we have insurance. The reason we ask our students to sign up for all these ways is so that they're assured when they're doing their activities, and that they're safe, and that there's some safeguarding there, because we are a charity, so we have a legal obligation to do those things for our members. But we should be looking at ways to do that in a much easier way.
And trying to make the process not necessarily quicker, but just sort of like easier for them to understand why and what's going on. Yeah.
I mean, you brought up a point about student union being fun.
You can be honest.
Do you want this?
I'm thinking about it now. Well, we're talking about inclusive, like everything being inclusive and fun, and like starting like separate societies for the international students. We know we have Freshers Week and we have the sports events and everything.
Yep.
Why isn't there one event where everyone can just everyone can just be together? No matter, you don't have to be a society.
I think
doing events. Like that.
What are you? So
I mean, so we've come up with an idea called
Yeah.
for a rollerblading event where everyone can just come in, whether you're like international student or not. You don't have to be part of society. But when we went to ask to set the event up, they said we have to go through a society. So we have to go through Josh's society to set the event up. The university can't set it up themselves as like say they've got asylum, they've got the spa and those things. Like there isn't just one thing where everyone can just come in and have fun together. Like, you don't have to be doing this. You don't have to be doing that.
It's like at the uni.
Are
you have
you
to be a
saying
member
for
of society.
like if you wanted to book a room here, you'd have to do it under a society and that sort of?
Yeah, like
So I think
Yeah.
the point is like you have to be a member of a specific society if you want to like have an event. So I think what the uni needs to what I think we're trying to say is there needs to be events that are run not by societies but by the uni.
yeah, because like we've been
so-
talking
Okay.
about.
It's like
Yeah, I get what you're
even if
saying.
it's an
Yeah,
event
yeah.
society.
What we have are the things
Yeah.
called Give It a Go events.
Yeah.
And those are essentially what you're talking about. But when you approach them about putting that event on, they should really have offered you to run it as a Give It a Go event.
Yeah.
I don't know why that hasn't been done.
Yeah.
That's it's disappointing to hear. The reason, obviously, we run events through clubs is obviously, as I was saying earlier, insurance reasons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There are certain legal things that we just can't
There's
get
hoops,
around.
Yeah.
But yeah, there absolutely needs to be a simpler system for just individual students who maybe aren't part of clubs or don't want to run it through that particular club to put on events with the union support.
Yeah. I was about to say.
Give It a Go is normally how we do that.
And I'm confused as to why they didn't advertise that to you either, because you know that's what those Give It a Go events are there for. That's what.
Because they said it was all right because it was a rollerblading idea. So
Yeah.
in the sports hall, we'd rent it out and then charge people per head like a £5 each.
Okay.
Yeah, and then just do a rollerblading for 2 hours.
just
Little
come
like
and-
disco. Because
Yeah.
we're trying to do events where you don't have to have alcohol.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
all
Yeah, no,
these
brilliant.
societies, sports clubs,
Yeah,
it's all heavily intoxicated.
Was the plan for that money to then go towards a charity or go towards
Just put it back into the university.
Just go back into
Yeah.
the
Straight back to the union. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that
Yeah.
people could just come in together and do, because we were saying that there's international students who feel left, they can't do something
Yeah.
because of the barrier.
I get that.
So we want to
Completely.
get rid of that way. Everyone
Yeah.
just comes in just with your friends and have fun.
Yeah, like even with joining societies, when I first came here in September, I spoke to some people about joining the music society, something that maybe you're.
I
got
say
some
I'm
interest in.
part of Hums as well. So
Yeah, I tried joining the music society, and I spoke to a few people there, and all of them either didn't respond or saw my message and left it like that, so left me on red. So unfortunately, there is still a barrier with trying to join a society, and
Yeah,
even at
no,
that, trying to
definitely.
create events without societies. Because
definitely.
obviously, that if other people had that, they would put them off from being interested in any societies and any events.
Yeah.
So, like, is there anything that you guys in particular would think could like lessen that barrier? Something that you might think that needs to be changed with societies, just in general.
I think that you're always going to get people who ignore you.
Yeah, people are always
throughout,
going to stop.
throughout this campaign, I've messaged every single society and sports team that we have here, and the good majority of them don't get back to you.
Yeah.
Obviously, these people are volunteers and they're also busy and they're doing things, but there should be like a way of contacting societies where you can be sure that you're going to get some sort of response, and if you don't get a response from the society, you're going to get a response from a staff member.
Yeah.
And I would really love to integrate that through an app if possible.
I say I'm completely here with you. A lot of people have been talking about this app, and the more and more I've gone on this week, the more I've like, this is such a great idea, and that's the sort of thing that needs to happen on the app. That's the sort of
Or even just a website, just to make it more simpler.
Yeah, completely with you. Being able to contact people, and you will have a reply rather than being ignored and left on red. That's the sort of thing.
Yeah, it makes it especially more difficult if you're new to Hull you want to get involved in things. You're sending messages to people, but they're not responding, because that can be demoralising.
Yeah, definitely.
And it makes people feel like people don't want them to get involved.
Yeah, exactly. And it's these sort of things. People are really excited to join these things. I've always made a conscious effort. Anybody who messages the Jam page gets a reply.
Yeah.
Regardless of what sort of thing they're asking, like I always try and give them a reply if I can. And I like you say, it's hard to expect everybody to reply, because it's just not. That's just not how the world works, unfortunately.
Especially if you're like really popular as well.
Oh yeah. But sorry,
yeah.
No, you go.
The people who are on execs of clubs and sports teams, societies, you'd expect them to want to get as many people along as possible.
Yeah.
That's why it is sometimes surprising when you message them. They leave you on red, or they don't see it at all. A lot of these pages I've found on Facebook and Instagram sometimes are quite inactive.
Yeah.
We've had over the last 2 years. Obviously, we've had the pandemic. A lot of clubs died off, and we've actually seen a lot of issues where passwords weren't handed over, and some clubs have died.
Yeah, so we've had this issue.
In the same way.
We don't have access to our Facebook page because our previous station manager just hasn't given us the password.
Wow.
Should get on Jack about that.
Yeah, well, we've tried. So it wasn't actually Jack's fault. It was the one before him. Yeah.
So
And then the one before him.
So there's a major need for revitalising and like revamping all like societies and all
I say this is why it's a big thing in my manifesto. It's just something needs to change. There needs to be revitalisation, and with this sort of new role, there is that opportunity, because it is something brand new and it is something we can do.
And it's all about, just as we're getting more and more international students, more diversity across campus, it's about having that ingrained in our culture as a community, about inclusion and diversity, and making sure everyone can get involved.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. There you go. So far, I haven't had to dig into anyone.
Hey.
Let's try to keep it that way. So we've gone over a lot of societies and things like that.
Yeah.
I think we've got some really good points out of that. The next thing I want to go on to, that mainly involves you, accommodation and places of living. It may, when I say this, be obvious what I'm going to bring up, but I live in Westfield. I can see that you already know.
I'm so sorry. I apologise.
I mean, we already know the toilet story.
Yeah, do you want to repeat it again?
I'll tell it on this one just to let you guys know.
Okay.
So yesterday, obviously, Westfield had power cuts and water cuts.
Ah, yes, I heard about this. Yeah.
I was in the toilet when that happened.
1 or 2?
No comment. So when we went down to the reception after I managed to clean myself up. Oh, it couldn't flush. I managed to get it to flush eventually. I managed to wash my hands. I'm not dirty. But when we went down to reception, we were told it was a whole wide power cut.
Right. Okay.
The whole area of Hull, so it wasn't just the unit. And obviously we needed water and we needed food. So when we came to the library and everything was on, and I walked past someone with a hot coffee, and I was like, how the hell did they get that? And then we got an email about an hour later saying it was just everything west of Westfield. And it was just that area of our living. That confused me a lot, and there's a major issue with the communication, and not only that, the power. Because I don't know if there's backup generators that are provided by the uni, because everything on Westfield's third party, as we've gone over. The fact that there weren't even backup generators so I could flush a toilet, or even... Because you've had the issue of your door not working.
Yeah, my door stops working.
What, is it the MagSafe doors? Yeah.
So I was just wondering, but obviously because you work with accommodation and things like that, and even for you, Ben, if there's anything that you can add to it, there's a major issue with communication and the running of some of our accommodation. So I was just wondering if there's anything that you had plans for, anything you just wanted to bring up whilst you're here.
Yeah, so on that power cut, I heard that it affected Westfield as well. I was actually in the sports centre when it happened, and the basketball squad were waiting for Newcastle to turn up so they could play their game, and they'd been told that they'd been stuck in traffic because there'd been power cuts and all the traffic lights had turned red.
Right.
So I do think there's some truth to the fact that it wasn't Westfield specific, but that there was certain grids across this part of the city. Okay. But there should be backup generators for a building that big with that many people relying on the power there. I can only imagine if someone had been halfway through typing up their dissertation and their computer had turned off.
Obviously, unis a lot of independent work as well.
Yeah.
So obviously a lot of people will be working from their accommodation. So that is also another major issue that I didn't think about.
People are like,
It's
it happened to me!
It's very clear to me that the partnership that the university have with UPP, which is the company that built Westfield and run it, it's very clear that that accommodation block was built cheaply. Because let's be honest, it's how old? 3-4 years old.
Yeah.
And it was touted as state of the art student accommodation, and it just shouldn't be having these issues if it's state of the art student
I
accommodation.
thought they spent like 66 mil.
Yeah. Well, apparently they spent loads of money, but clearly some of that money's not going in the right places, or maybe they should have spent a bit more money. Because a building that new should not be having these issues.
No.
And when it is having these issues, there should be the proper staff available to fix the issues really quickly. Especially when you consider, I mean, you must be paying upwards of
£150.
£6,400 for the whole year.
Yeah,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
I bet that's like 38 week or
So it's
42
from
week
42
contract.
weeks.
42
Yeah.
weeks. So that's so expensive when you
Oh, yeah.
consider
Oh
that
yeah.
you can.
I mean, I think I've paid 1,300 in 3 instalments. So what's that? That's 3,600 for September to July.
I paid £70 a week. It was all inclusive in a big house on.
Yeah.
It's not as close to campus, so it's not as, but it's really not that far away at all.
Oh, yeah.
And what's going to start happening if the university really don't pull their finger out and start fixing these issues is that students are going to start to
Get private
not want to
accommodation.
live there.
Going to
Yeah.
private,
Yeah, and the word's going to pass out, especially if they're having lots of international students trying to live there. They're going to come over, do their master's year, they're going to go back home, they're going to tell people, yeah, come to Hull, but don't stay there.
Yeah.
What's going to end up happening is they're going to start losing money on that, and that will negatively affect students because there'll be less money for them to spend.
Yeah, I mean,
the student
and there's a
experience.
knock-on effect to those sort of things. You know, people will say, "Oh, so the accommodation isn't really that good. What's the point of me going? Because there's nowhere else for me to go, really." And it sort of it stops. You know,
Yeah.
if
Stops
there is
students from
there's
coming,
there's a domino
And
effect
it has
with those sort of things.
It has a significant impact on people's mental health as well.
Oh yeah, well-being is a
I-
huge problem.
Like when I get home, that's my space where I can chill out and relax. And if I'm having issues with the plumbing and issues with the heating and issues with the electricity, then you can't relax because you're on edge. Because you can't do the things you want to be doing in your own space.
if I didn't have my Xbox for the power, I'd cry. I couldn't do without it.
And it sounds
yeah.
like a small issue when it's isolated, but when you consider the fact that it's been continuous in some cases, and it's a lot of students that are affected. I don't know how many students are living in Westfield, but there's a lot of rooms.
And it's been an issue. It's
yeah.
been an issue since it opened as well. It's not. It's not like it's just at the past sort of year and a half thing.
No.
There have been issues since it very first opened.
Right.
I just want to bring up on that, talking about this.
I was going to do that.
You've only got yours a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I was going to do
This is a catering card, and the reason I have this is because Westfield, the first trimester, its heating was so poor and inconsistent, and so many people complained that everyone in Westfield was eligible to get a £100 gift card for any cafe on the uni campus.
Okay.
So you just get given £100 if you live in Westfield. But it's not just the heating that's the issue. It's the heating, the Wi-Fi, the water, the electricity, and it's been consistent. I work for the mental health and student wellbeing charity for the uni. It's only a 6-week. It's a 6-week thing, so it's quite quick, which is another thing I wanted to bring up later on when we get to mental health. But when it's a work from home scheme, so when I'm working from home and halfway through my shift the Wi-Fi and the power go out,
Yeah.
that affects a lot. Because you're supposed to be making calls to people, making sure they're okay, and trying to spread the word of the charity, and like just in general trying to make sure.
I mean,
people
you're
are okay.
taking care of other people's well-being at
Exactly,
that point,
yeah.
and you know, and that this is what I meant by knock-on effects. You know, it leaves people vulnerable.
Yeah.
Just my opinion on those cards is that they're an insult.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very clear attempt for them to go shove £100 at you, and it's not £100 cash either. It's £100 for you to spend.
On the cafes at the
uni.
university.
I was about to say you can only do it in those
And-
specific.
yeah.
That's not £100 for them either, because
Oh no.
the cost of them making that food that they're selling to you for £100 is more like 20.
Well, even at that, a lot of the cafes have Costa.
Yeah.
For their coffees, a lot of their fizzy drinks aren't on tap. They're dyed bottle, which is an issue I was going to bring up later. With a lot of things I'm bringing up later, isn't it?
You should really write this. You should bring it down.
Well,
Get to the point.
get to.
Oh, put it needed.
But yeah,
Coming soon.
the thing I'm bringing up with this is the university. It's in the long term making a loss. In the short term, sorry, it's making a loss because it's giving out so many £100 gift cards. But in the long run, it's also making a slightly smaller loss because they're having to pay Costa, they're having to pay Pepsi, they're having to pay everyone because they're outsourcing all of their product. Whereas what you brought up earlier with the beehives and making honey, I think it's very important that we try to make things locally because it stops the spread of global warming by using less plastics and fuel, and it actually helps bring more jobs, and it creates a better environment for the uni. So I think that's a very good over the beehives and the honey. Yeah. Is there anything that you guys were considering doing or working towards with doing that for more things? So like putting more water fountains, because I know there's water fountains in the library, but there's nothing. Well, but they do need working on. But there's nothing else around campus.
No.
Yeah.
And even if you want to drink when you're in, I don't know, Wilberforce, you have to go through a vending machine which has plastic in it.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, is there anything you're working on to reduce plastics or just making things more local in general?
Yeah, it's definitely something I want to look at in my sustainability piece. I think in terms of, like, obviously there's economies of scale with when we're talking about cafes and the shop and restaurants and stuff. So there's a certain point where sourcing locally becomes incredibly expensive. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be looking at doing it.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, it's so beneficial in terms of sustainability. But the university did this whole plastic pledge campaign thing a few years ago. They built a structure out of plastic in front of the library, and it was, at the time, it was really frustrating because it was clearly just a PR stunt.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because at the cafes, they still have plastic spoons and forks and things like that.
Yeah.
They still have plastic straws, which is something that you don't see very often.
I was about to say, I was in the cafe yesterday and saw they'd got plastic straws, and it made me question. It was like, why though? What's the why have you got this? And on the point with that plastic pledge, it complete PR stunt in my mind. It's like. And there wasn't really. Sorry. No, I was just going to say, and there wasn't really much advertised about it. It was just a week of it, I think, if I remember rightly, and it was just like that was it.
The uni does this sort of thing all the time. They did it with the plastic pledge. They did it again with Team GB. It's like
I was going to go on to that point.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'll let you talk about it then. But yeah, so it's just like virtue signalling with no actual content behind it. Like. Yeah. No, none of the sports clubs or sports teams saw any benefit from the TGB.
Now, I was going to say, do you guys know what Team GB do for you?
No.
No, exactly.
No. I actually saying this when I was doing my club. I basically want to do a judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
In my arm, should it called?
Turn the power on.
So basically, want to do a judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I thought it'd be really easy because the university sponsored by Olympics and JB.
Team GB.
Easy peasy.
Yep.
It wasn't at all.
No, exactly.
No involvement. There's no places for mats. There's an MMA club here. There's no spaces for them.
You've got to buy your own equipment to do anything.
Yeah. No, and this is the thing. You'd have thought with the... I'm feeling a sneeze coming on, so apologies. But you'd have thought with the Team GB thing...
Let it out.
Go on, man.
That's really annoying, it's not come. You'd have thought with the Team GB thing, that'd have been more easier to sort of support and that'd have been easier to sort of, facilitate. But it seems like the Team GB thing hasn't changed anything for the uni.
There's no gymnastics.
It's no gymnastics, nothing like that. It's not all it's given them is the bragging rights to say sponsored by Team GB.
Yeah. Is there anything you're working on to try and open that up?
I'd love to be able to open that up. I'd love to work with official Team GB sponsors and get them in and be able to do more. Did you know we had Matt Whitlock, the British gymnast, here a couple of weeks ago?
I had him on the.
Oh, did you? I say Dane, our station manager here, managed to interview him and stuff like that. But that wasn't. I mean, we had one email about that. One email to say that Matt Whitlock was coming, and I think that's really, really poor, especially if they're wanting to say. We've got this partnership. It should be more celebrated. Team GB are huge. They're a big thing, and we should be proud of the fact that we're sponsored by that. It's not just a label. It's this is a really important thing, and we should celebrate the fact that is there. And I'd love to be able to create more connections with the Team GB team and be able to contact them more and get more people.
Yeah, definitely.
Get more people in and get them to come in and maybe run sessions with the sports teams. Get them to come and talk with them. I know it's hard sometimes to get athletes and stuff, but there's trainers and there's there's tons of aspects of the Team GB side.
If they can get the name on there,
yeah, exactly,
be able to get something going.
Yeah, you'd have thought so. Yeah,
and that's another reason. Like with the alum, is there any statues of alum? He's put so much money into the university. Where's our appreciation for that?
Yeah,
he's got his name on a few buildings, but
that's it.
But yeah. But one of the things that I always say about the university and them and the cost of sport is that when people are in clubs and societies at the university, they go out, they compete against other universities, and they're representing the University of Hull in that space. The uni's really keen that we continue to have a really robust sporting presence, and it's because they want that representation, because they know that if we have no sports teams, a lot fewer students will come here, because one of the biggest parts of the university experience for a lot of people is being in sports teams. But on the flip side, they're not willing to show that in terms of the cost of sport and supporting students more in that area. Like, obviously, they've built this brand new sports centre, new good facilities, and that will have cost them a lot of money, and they do need to make that money back. Obviously, nothing's free, and if you want to be doing things, you expect to be paying a little towards it. But you don't expect to be paying the amount that people have to pay, especially for sports teams.
Oh yeah, and especially like joining the gym as well and stuff like that. And
it's ridiculous how much the university gym costs when you consider that there are 3 or 4 gyms within walking distance from campus that are better and bigger and cheaper.
Yeah,
you're in sync with each other.
Well, no, but this is the thing.
These two get voted in, they'll be great workers.
This is the thing, though. It's not just us that have noticed this. There are lots of students that have picked up on this, and I'm pretty sure most people I speak to don't go to the uni gym because it's too expensive for them. 10-minute, literally 10-minute walk.
So you're going to put some more information about hidden costs then?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, Hull is one of the cheapest places in the country to live, but even here, people are beginning to struggle. Inflation's going up all the time. Yeah.
I mean, I help out at a food bank twice a week, and the numbers have only gone up more recently for the people that require those sort of services, and it's scary to see, especially in an area like you were saying. That's
the homeless population is skyrocketed throughout the pandemic, and it continues to rise.
Yeah, I say alongside the food bank, we've got a soup kitchen that's run as well with it, and I think last week we had 40 people, 40 men and women, and I think it was quite a few of them were homeless or living in sort of halfway houses and those sort of things, and and it's scary to see. It's scary to see,
and it's while hopefully we don't have many students in that dire of a position, it just goes to show how easy it is to struggle financially, and that's another one of those massive things where people don't feel like they can get involved with clubs and societies because they simply can't afford to.
And there are grants that are out there for students to be able to join societies and stuff that will cover the costs for membership and going to play games.
But the eligibility criteria are often quite restricted.
Yeah, no, this is what I'm saying, and people don't actually know that those sort of things exist as well. There's a lot of students, especially those international students, they haven't a clue that's there for them. So I think it's important that we make them aware that it's there and make it easier to be able to, use these grants, and I'm trying to find the right word. But be able to use these
to access the.
That's the word I was after. Access these things.
There is a question I want to ask. Obviously, we're saying that we've given a lot to the university money-wise. The question I want to know is, where is that money going?
Yeah, well, the money they get off students from the sports passes, obviously when you pay your AU insurance, that goes to the insurance people.
Yeah.
But the sports passes and stuff, that will all be absorbed by their costs of running the sports centre. Obviously, that building would have cost a lot of money, and it costs money to run and upkeep.
I say they need to maintain all the equipment in there, and
there are something like Okay, I don't know the numbers for this year, but I know over the last pre-pandemic year there was something like 1,700 members of sports teams, and they're all playing roughly. Well, it's different for each club.
Yeah, but it would say.
But it's a lot of money.
Once a week, maybe. Yeah,
it's
on average.
it's a lot of money that they're paying towards these services. And I was talking actually to the. Who was I talking to? I was talking to the basketball squad about this the other day about they don't understand where the money's going, because not on top of that you've also got to pay for transport to different games.
You've got to pay your own transport.
Yeah.
So
I was about to
big
say.
clubs are able to book buses, but then small clubs often have to rely on people having cars and doing lifts.
Yeah.
So yeah, there needs to be some.
Yours is quite a big
Some
club, though, isn't it?
accountability.
The American football.
Mine's a big club, so fortunately we can afford our own buses to go ourselves
Yeah, I
there.
say I've got a friend on the my flatmate is in the basketball squad, and I was talking to him yesterday about it, and I was like, because I think they were playing York last week, I think it was, and I was saying, how did you actually get down there? It's like, did you have to? And he was saying, we have to support ourselves, you know. If it's far away enough, then we'll get a coach. But no, if it's something like York, and you know, for a lot of people,
That's like 30 quid.
yeah,
Yeah.
no,
So
it's
it's
a lot.
York,
Yeah,
about.
if they're doing it on the train or if they're driving, you know, that's a lot of fuel and stuff like that.
And the university is less than transparent with where that money goes, and I think that needs to be something that changes, considering the fact that money is coming from students. Students have the right to know where that money is going, how it's being spent, if it's being spent efficiently, and not just being wasted. Because that's one of my big issues with the university, is that they're such a big organisation that there's lots of leakage, and there's lots of things that just aren't efficient, and it just ends up in wasted money, wasted resources, wasted people's time as well.
Yeah.
And let's talk about wasted money. I want to talk about one accommodation, which I think for a lot of people we think is the worst accommodation.
Oh,
Go for it.
Taylor Court.
Yeah.
yeah. When I came here, I was told Courtyard is okay.
Courtyard is okay.
Westfield's probably to go to, but
Taylor Court is avoided. I know Taylor Court's owned by the university.
Yeah.
It's university. What accommodation wise, where's that money going? Because we're paying £150 a week, and most of the stuff we've got to pay for our own washing, which is one thing,
Yeah,
which is absolutely ridiculous.
Circuit, yeah.
Food wise, it's quite expensive. And when you break
Very.
it down, it's very expensive.
More than your accommodation.
Yeah, and you where is that £150 we're paying actually going to? Because I know Taylor Court, there's so many issues
Well,
there.
this is the thing with landlords of any sort, is that once that they've paid, because Taylor Court's been around for a long time, and I'm sure that they've paid the entire cost that it cost them to build the place. So all that money is just profit for the university. After obviously you've got your heating, gas, electric, Wi-Fi and stuff, which won't cost them very much at all, because it's they'll get massive. I mean, they use campus Wi-Fi that they have anyway. They'll get massive discounts on their electricity and gas rates, I expect. Don't know that for certain, but the rest of that money will just all be lining the pockets of the estates team and the university in general. And that's probably how they've been able to do a lot of, the building works of the new accommodations, is they'll be taking money from that and pumping it into other areas, which is not necessarily a bad thing that they're
it's
taking
good.
that money and pumping it in, as long as they're putting that money into places where students want that money to go.
Yeah, I was about to say, you'd want to see where that money's going. You'd
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
see, you want to see the efforts for
Almost
what
have
you
like a
pay.
vote on it. They should put almost put 5 things.
The most
Like-
needed areas for students where the money should be going.
Well, that really is the role of the students' union, because we're here as that intermediary between what students want and what the university are doing.
Yeah.
They're such a big corporate entity. They take dealing with students, in my mind, not seriously enough at all.
Yeah.
In my mind, students are numbers to them.
Yeah.
we're-
No, I was about to say,
absolutely,
yeah.
you don't feel appreciated
Like-
by the union.
You don't even. We're not even really customers in their eyes. I don't believe. We're just.
figures on the screen.
Another
Yeah,
pa-
I
one
was
other,
about to say,
one
you're
other pound
that
in their
amount
pocket,
payment.
basically.
Yeah. Every student is £9,250 per year.
Yeah.
And that sometimes I feel like is all they care about. They have been getting a lot better over the last year at actually engaging with the students' union.
I think COVID's helped with that a lot.
There's a new partnership committee that I actually sit on, where we talk with the highest level management at the university. But then
Right.
what we find is often university management, like the senior management, are quite good at listening and understanding what the students want and what students' union want. But then there's then there's this level of middle management that we often find that we come across resistance
Mm.
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
they don't really care, they don't want to listen to the students' union, and they don't want to implement things that come down from above. So it's something that we need to continue working on.
I mean,
And,
speaking about like the middle ground, and we've noticed with our lectures, we've had a massive issue with our lecturers, communication one,
Okay. Yeah.
and the constant